We are here with James Maida, who is the CEO of Gaming Laboratories International, or as everybody in the industry simply knows, GLI. And this is always one of our favorite CEO one-on-one interviews, James, for two reasons. One is you are such a great articulator of the trends happening in the gaming industry each year. And this year especially because GLI is the global sponsor of all the content that you are going to see from Fantini Research at G2E this year, from the interviews we're doing with all the CEOs to the displays, the booths, and the other content that you'll see. So James, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me today, Frank. Really appreciate being here.
This has been an extraordinarily busy and unusual year for the gaming industry.
It has.
There have been a lot of outside forces, you know, the continued evolution of COVID, recession, supply chain issues, not recession yet, inflation for sure.
Right.
Fear of recession. Tell us a little bit about how those forces have affected the industry, and in turn, maybe how they've affected the services that you provide.
You know, a lot of people have spent the last couple of years talking about the pandemic and how difficult it's been, and you just named a whole lot of things that we're going through right now in the industry. But my view is had the pandemic had not occurred, we probably wouldn't have all this iGaming and sports betting. So in a way, I look at, yes, pandemic was an awful thing, but it actually moved our industry forward 5 or 7 years artificially, where we probably would have had to wait. So I think about, you know, gaming is thriving. iGaming and iLottery and sportsbook is coming more and more to the United States. I think we're going to have a really big legislative year next year. And we're seeing companies start getting out on the road. The supply chains are starting to ease up a little bit, and we are seeing, we're seeing almost like business back to normal. And that's what we're trying to do at GLI as well.
Your company has evolved, of course, along with the gaming industry. And what began as a certification lab for games has expanded into a consultancy and a whole variety of services. Can you just describe for us the GLI of 2022?
The GLI of 2022 really starts with the legislative process, the rulemaking process, where states, governments, tribal nations are getting new types of gaming because of the pandemic and the unintended consequences from that. So we have a large team led by Kevin Mullally, who works with government relations and governments and making sure that regulators are up for the challenge of writing the rules, writing the regulations, making sure the statutes are correct. And at the same time, we have an equally as large supplier assistance, really our development team. And we go and we meet with suppliers, and we want to make sure that the suppliers can be on time, everybody can participate in a jurisdiction, and we get them to market. We get them there on time, on budget, and we make sure that whatever they put in the market has the highest quality. So really, it's two sides of GLI. One side working with the regulator, the government, making sure we can get up and running, and it's the other side making sure that suppliers have the readiness to get into the market.
You are Gaming Laboratories International. You truly are international. Can you describe a little bit the scope?
Yeah, so just last week, Frank, I think 2 weeks ago, I spent the week traveling around to our offices in Europe. We acquired the SIQ brand, and SIQ is now a part of the GLI family, and so we're really pleased about that. So I spent 10 days traveling around Europe to each of our offices, meeting with every one of our employees. We have approximately 900 plus people in our GLI division, 300 in our Bulletproof division. We're located over something like 25 offices around the world, which really gives us an advantage because we can be close to each supplier. So if we need to meet with a supplier in Estonia or meet with another supplier in Spain, we have offices that we can quickly get there. You know, and so we want to be everywhere so that we can reach our clients as quickly as possible and talk to them in the language, their own language, and be able to translate what's happening around the world in other jurisdictions to them. Right now, the big push is everybody in Europe wants to come to America. 5 years ago, everybody in America wanted to go to Europe. So we spend our days and nights making sure that suppliers in Europe have the readiness to come to America, and they're successful. And that's really key. So I'll be doing a world tour later this year, I'm sure, around the Asia Pacific, try to hit Latin America, and obviously our Canada, where we have people as well. So it's a global operation.
Not bad for a Jersey guy.
That's true. That's true. That's true. 36 years we've been doing this, and it's just been really fun.
The proliferation, especially so much of it on digital,
Right.
and so much of it high profile, such as sports betting. And you know, you can't listen to since I don't live in the Philadelphia area anymore.
Right.
I follow the Philadelphia sports teams
Right.
on the internet.
Right.
And whether it's listening to the radio broadcast or some sort of internet service, you're just bombarded with ads for betting, some of which are pretty aggressive.
Right.
And every 12-year-old kid in America who's watching a football game this weekend is going to be
Right.
exposed to sports betting advertising. Tell me, what's your take on the vulnerability of people to gambling abuse, I guess might be the right word. What should the industry really do about it? Not just talk about doing something. And is there a role for GLI in that?
Yeah. I think that, first of all, problem gambling and those issues are best tackled by the American Gaming Association, which has been very out front on that. AGM, the Association of Gaming Equipment Manufacturers. There's many, many reputable problem gambling centers. So this policy area, GLI doesn't get into. So we're more technology-based. However, we are there to test, certify, and review those types of software and hardware that help with player exclusion or help with problem gambling and identifying problem gambling. So we don't really have a public position on what should the industry do. I think the AGA speaks to it every single day. I think the suppliers and the sports books and the iGaming companies really do their best to make sure that they do things in a responsible way. Everybody has an opinion about it, but I do think that our industry is forefront in everybody's mind. And I think that each jurisdiction, especially in Europe, where they have rules about when you can advertise and when you can't, every jurisdiction is grappling with this in their own way. And I think that over time, the world will kind of migrate towards a position that'll be very uniform. Again, though, allowing for differences between governments who look at this. Remember, Frank, in the United States, we're a state-by-state jurisdiction, regulatory scheme, versus Europe and other places around the world where it's done on a national level. So I think we need to let state suppliers, state regulators, figure out what the policy is right in each state.
You had mentioned at the beginning, James, about the warp speed change in the
Yes.
gaming industry, thanks in part because of the necessities brought on by COVID. So it's hard to get a crystal ball out and say what's the industry will be like in 3 to 5 years. But to ask you an unfair question, what's the industry going to look like 3 to 5 years from now?
I think that what you're seeing right now, we've come out of COVID. There's lots of companies. You just have to go to some of these. I've been traveling to these iGaming shows where there's all these startup companies. So we've had just this ton of startup activity. I think with interest rates rising, as you well know, and Fantini, you guys follow all of the markets and know what that means. I think we're going to see a lot of consolidation. I think that no longer can you run a business for long periods of time and not have EBITDA or not have cash flow. I think we see companies looking around and say, what makes sense for us to acquire? And I think acquisitions are going to be extremely important here as we go forward. I think 3 to 5 years, really large brands will survive. Really good companies will be part of those larger brands. And you're starting to see that now. You look at large sports bet that have multiple different brands. Right? They just don't all just park it in one brand. So we see a lot of acquisition happening. mostly because of the necessity to raise capital and things like that. For GLI, we're concentrating on really several things right now, and we'll do so over the next several years. We want our people to be out on airplanes in front of customers and clients. I'm so glad I'm here with you today, because this would not be half as fun if it wasn't on Zoom. And we are in every state, every country, meeting with customers, clients, regulators, and I've told my people that are out traveling just like I am, you better grab a whole bunch of airline tickets, because I want everybody out there. Like, this isn't engage customers and clients over Zoom. This is about being in their office, asking them, what can we do to help you? What can we do to make your job better? We're hiring every day. We have hiring meetings about how many more people we can hire. We anticipate GLI being over 1,000 people just in our GLI division, probably 350 people in our Bulletproof division by the end of next year, and we continue to grow. One of the things I tell all of our individuals is, all of our senior leadership, and they're all on board with me, is that we have to make sure we have the resources to get our customers' work done on time, on budget, the highest quality, and make sure we can deliver every single time to them. And that requires personnel and people, and we are global hiring right now, where we're going to hire, I think in the next 4 months, something like another 80 test engineers to make sure that no matter what happens, the new jurisdictions coming on board, we have enough to handle it. I think in the short term, I think this California referendum that's going to happen in November, I'm sure you'll have some people speak about that this week, that's going to be big news. Does California go or not? And does iGaming, not just sports betting, but how does iGaming increase around the United States? Because we've been really good on getting more sports book, but for iGaming, we need more of that activity. So I think next year's legislative session is going to be great. I think in 5 years, we've pulled a lot forward, as I said, in the next 7 years. I think it's doing better and bigger for the industry, and working out those questions about advertising and those kinds of things. I think esports will start to be hot, and I think skill type of things where people can go to a casino and play a certain type of skill game, that might be hot too.
You have a booth here at G2E?
I do have a booth here at G2E, and we're expecting a great crowd. I was just up there earlier today, and before it opened, and the show floor looks wonderful.
And what should people expect to see when they come to your booth?
So I actually think that they should expect to see approximately, I think, between 50 and 60 GLI team members from all over the world have descended upon Las Vegas this week. I'll be meeting with all of them later today. And we want people to come to our stand, talk to our regulatory people, our supplier development people, our technicians. We have our compliance people there. We brought them in so that if you want to talk about what's going on in Slovenia, or what's going on in South Africa, or what's going on in Tennessee, we'll have people there to help you do that. But I think coming to our stand is just the beginning. We want people to come to our stand, and we want to meet them, but then we want to actually buy the airline ticket and go see them, because I truly believe that if you go see a customer and sit across from their desk, you can learn a whole lot more about what their needs and what they need to do. So coming to our booth, Frank, is the first step. The second step is give us your business card, tell us how we can help, and then we want to be able to get on a plane and go see you.
That is a great summary. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Frank, for having me again.